Welcome back to the RUDIS Wrestling Podcast. This is your host, Matt Dernlan. We have a special guest here today, the new head coach of the University of Maryland, Alex Clemsen. Alex, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, it's great to be here. I appreciate you guys having me. It's been a whirlwind the last 8-9 weeks. It's pretty exciting, professionally and personally. Just a lot of moving parts. So it's great to be out in Fargo and actually doing what I enjoy, right? Recruiting kids to go out and develop the next, set of champions at the University of Maryland.
So how did, I don't know, I don't want to feel like you're regurgitating everything that you've been talking about for the last 3 months, but how did this opportunity come about, and what was it about Maryland? I know you've been on the grind. Let's take it through. You've been the assistant at Oregon State, Missouri, Virginia.
Yep. That's it. Yeah.
And so that's a long journey as an assistant coach. I know you've been chomping at the bit for the right opportunity.
Yeah.
What made this the right opportunity?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, probably the people. So the sports supervisor who at Maryland, who actually just got promoted to senior staff, his name's Mark Sherburne. Mark is a Penn State guy, Penn State grad, grew up in State College, so he loves wrestling, knows the sport. He was the AD at Lock Haven that hired Scott Moore. And Scott and I are best friends. Scott offered me a job with him when he got the position there, and I went up and met with Mark and Scott, and was super impressed with Mark and his vision and his knowledge of the sport. Just didn't think that was the right move for me at the time to go to Lock Haven, which was really hard because Scott and I are really tight. And it's kind of a dream, right, to work with people that you really appreciate, and not only on a professional side, but on a personal side. But it just didn't feel right. And so I shared that with them, and I think Mark really appreciated my honesty and could see how hard that was for me, but that I think ultimately he knew I probably made the right decision for me at the time, which allowed them to make a good hire, later. So we just kind of stayed in contact, when you click with someone or connect with someone. And then when he got the job at Maryland to be a sports supervisor and an associate AD, we just continued to build our relationship. We'd run into each other, see each other, and then with the announcement of Carrie not being retained, Mark had reached out and asked if I had interest, and of course I did. You think about Maryland being not just in the Big Ten, which is obviously the best league in the country, but the type of student athlete that institution can attract. It's the 12th best public school in the country. My favorite thing about my time at Virginia was the caliber of young person I got to coach and recruit, and the families, and so I was really excited to kind of get back to that. I call it, you're stealing from JFK, the best and the brightest, and so that was fun. So you pair that with the opportunity to compete in the best league, it's a home run. Just feel really fortunate that I was able to get the job.
Well, this is where 6 degrees of separation come in, because when I was at Penn State, Mark was the guy that I worked with. Mark and Sue, his wife, who's in administration.
She's also on senior staff. Yeah.
So I have a lot of great memories with Mark during my time at Penn State, and obviously, I'm excited about where he's landed and that he's actually overseeing, because that's the big thing. Like when you're taking a head job, a lot of people just think it's about the program, but that's just where it starts. There's levels to this. There's got to be commitment from the administration. There's got to be engagement from the administration, and all those. Those are all those things that people don't think about a lot of times.
Yeah, I call it layers. You think about the layers, and having a champion, right, in the administration, and really, I kind of joke. It's probably the first time I've said it publicly, but I always give Mark crap that we really have 2, right, with Sue, she's awesome.
Yeah.
I really enjoy Sue. She's super intelligent. She respects the sport. She understands the sport. So I was kind of kid, like, if we can't get something done with the 2 of you up there as the masterminds, then we probably shouldn't get it done. And he's always like, she kind of jokes back that really, like, he has to vote however Sue votes. So,
because she's the SWA, right?
Yeah, she's the SWA. Yeah, and she's awesome. So, I always kid him. I say, behind every good man is a better woman, and it's no more evident than with you and Sue. So, so we're really, really fortunate. And then, the AD there, Mr. Evans, Damon Evans, he isn't.
Now, is he new?
He is. He was the associate AD, and then recently was appointed AD like 13 months ago.
Okay.
He's coming from Georgia, where he was the head AD, and he played football there actually. He was a 4-year letter winner, 3-year starter, was a stud linebacker, still looks like he could probably strap up and put a hurt on somebody. He doesn't, obviously he's not a wrestling guy, but he's a guy that understands competing at a high level. He's a guy that is super passionate about supporting coaches and athletes because he was a high-level athlete himself. And then he's a guy that came from Georgia where, I mean, they've won a lot in a lot of different areas, not just football, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they win like everything. So he understands winning culture, and I think that's super exciting for a program in Maryland that we're building that, you know, and I understand that as well. And so to have somebody that is running your ship that has the mentality of like, we want to win and we want to win now, is really good.
And that's critical. I mean, having that, obviously, a lot of head ADs out there. I mean, there's only 80 wrestling programs, so a lot of administrators have never been around wrestling, but that's critical that they understand culture and winning.
Yeah.
But more importantly for you, as your direct report with Mark, has a firm understanding and deeply ingrained understanding of what it takes, what the nuances of wrestling is. Because, you know, there's a difference between understanding winning and understanding wrestling.
For sure.
Right?
For sure. We're an interesting group of people, of human beings, right? Just when you think about the personalities in wrestling and how we operate. And so you really need that understanding of not just the sport, but kind of what makes the people within the sport tick. And I think I'm very, very blessed to have that at Maryland.
Yeah, that's great. So everybody says this. I know every assistant that's ascended into the head role, they're like, you know, I thought I was ready. I thought I knew what I was getting into, but there's a certain element of what you don't know.
Yeah.
The only part you don't know, you got to jump in and figure it out, being in that head role. So what have been some of those things that you've experienced now?
So I don't know, right? I'm so new. Nothing's come out and jumped out at me. I've been, I guess, being in the game long enough and earning guys' trust, you know, like Coach Garland and Brian Smith at Missouri. I was empowered to do a lot, and I was included in a lot of conversations that maybe most assistants aren't. I think both of those guys looked at me, especially I think towards the end of my career at Virginia, and then probably towards the middle and end at Mizzou. You know, they looked at me as an extension of themselves, and so I was empowered to have a lot of latitude and a lot of ownership. And then where I didn't, I was still included in conversations. I wasn't kept in the dark very much. And so I haven't, so far, knock on wood, nothing's kind of jumped in my face and been like, oh my gosh. I think at the end of the day, the biggest thing for me that's been the difference is actually managing my staff. I had to kind of get on my two guys for the first time. The other day we were late to a meeting, and it wasn't because of me. I wasn't very happy about that. The three of us, it's funny, we're actually staying in the gymnastics coach's basement.
Okay.
So 3 guys and 600 square feet in a 1-bedroom place. So I'm in the bedroom. Devin's on a couch with a mattress topper, fold-out couch, mattress topper, and then Nikki is on a blow-up air mattress. I mean, it's, you know, we're going to look back in 20 years, 10 years, whatever, and it's going to be really funny. We kind of joke about it, make fun of ourselves, you know, we're the guys in the basement or the guys on the couch, whatever. But managing, like, timing on, you know, one shower, one place to get changed, one little tiny kitchen to make a breakfast. We were late the other day, and I was upset about it, right? Because I'm, you know, setting the standard not just for myself and the program, but I think for our staff too, collectively as a group in the department. We were, you know, a couple minutes late, not a huge deal, but more just not how I want to have first interactions with people. And so that was hard just to get on those guys and be like, hey, you know, like, that can't happen. So I've been on the receiving end of a couple of those conversations, right? Growing up, as you matriculate and you mature and people give you more ownership, you're going to have slip-ups. And so I've been yelled at plenty of times. So actually having to be the guy that was like, hey, knuckleheads, I didn't really enjoy it. So,
but that's part of it, right? I mean, part of being the head coach,
I have to learn.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, I felt a big responsibility, like when I was in the game. Like, I would always tell my assistant, like, look, I may be hard on you, I may push you, but it's my responsibility to prepare you for your next great opportunity.
No doubt.
And so, and that ties in exactly to culture, right? Like, when you're the assistant, you're part of the culture. you're living the culture, but now you're personally driving.
I'm driving it. Yeah. No, yeah, and it's I hired 2 really good guys. I think going back again, talking about that support, Mr. Evans and Mark really made it possible for me to attract and go out and get the guys that I really think I needed or wanted. Probably needed, yeah, that's the right word, to have the success that I want to have and that the program deserves to have, the alums and the boosters and backers deserve to have. So, I think when you enjoy people, though, it's hard too, right? Because there's a friendship there, there's a kinship. And so I need to learn to balance how to pull the reins in on those guys or crack the whip on those guys like I need to in order to get as much out of them, because those guys have high goals, right, for themselves, not just down the road, but with Maryland also. I think we all see the opportunity that we have, and we're excited about it, but it's taking a lot of work.
Yeah. So a lot of times, when people see the hiring of assistants, they're like, well, this guy was a great wrestler and therefore he's going to be a great coach. We know that's not necessarily the case. What specifically, when you were looking for your assistants, what kind of skill set were you looking for? And are they going to fill a specific role for you? Or?
Yeah. I think first and foremost, I wanted guys that I knew I could trust. I was fortunate to be empowered. We talked about that a little bit ago, that I was entrusted and I was an extension of the head coach. I wanted to hire guys that I knew I could do that in turn with. And so I wanted really high character guys that are hardworking and intelligent. And so I think that kind of that trifecta was what I was looking for. And the 2 guys I hired with Nick and Devin are those guys. Obviously, I think Nick will be a little bit of my point guy in recruiting. And Devin will kind of be do some of like the back office operations, time, management stuff with compliance and travel and logistics. Devin actually spent a couple of years, about a year and a half, building transit vans. He got out of coaching, decided his career wasn't accelerating like he wanted it to. It was like, to have a baby. It was like, I need better benefits. I need, make more money. So he had an opportunity to jump to Ford in Kansas City. He's a Missouri kid, and he was a supervisor on the line. He was responsible for like 60-some employees.
Oh, wow.
And so a guy that understands, how to, manage people, manage time, manage resources, manage logistics. So I'm going to let him kind of take that skill set and put it in place. And then, Nikki's really personable and just kind of got a good pulse for, what we're looking for athletically out of kids, and is very organized and bright. So I'm letting him kind of run wild with the recruiting side of it, and then I'm kind of overseeing those 2 guys and stepping in where I need to and pulling them back when I need to and kind of mixing them up when I need to. We're going to be fluid with that, and Devin's already done a great job recruiting and making an impact with some kids that I'm really excited about, and Nikki's done some other back office stuff. So I've got guys that are talented. I couldn't sing their praises enough. What they've done in the last 8 or 9 weeks to get us in position to really attack this fall and get our kids that we have there trained properly, but then also make some good headway recruiting-wise. I've been super impressed by them, and very blessed to have them with
Nice. So switching gears a little bit, I wanted to talk about, your preparation for this role, and looking back from the start of your collegiate career, you've been blessed to be around some unbelievable head coaches, starting in your competitive career with Tim Flynn at Edinburgh, going to Oregon State with Jim Zaleski, to Virginia with Steve Garland, and then with Ryan Smith in Missouri. So I know this is open-ended, but what are maybe 1 or 2 things that you could point to that they were like instrumental in your development, and how did each one kind of play their part in developing you?
Yeah, so I'll start right away. Tim, and Coach Roselli there too, was there my first 4 years before he jumped to Ohio State. Now he's at Oklahoma. He's a head coach as well. And then Troy Steiner is now at Fresno, and he was at Oregon State. So I've been around just now. Scott at Virginia. So I've been really fortunate.
Yeah, literally, like all the guys you've coached with, head and assistants, are head coaches.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm really lucky. I've used that word blessed a couple times today. That's really how I feel. But I think with Coach Flynn and Coach Roselli really showing me how to pour into an athlete, and not just on the athletic side, but on the holistic side. It's kind of a cheesy word, right? But Tim and Lou really care about their guys, and they want to see you do well on the mat. They want to see you do well in the classroom. They want to see you be a productive husband and father, and they were talking about those things in the room before practices, after practices, road trips. I knew I wanted to be a head coach my third year when I was injured. I had a couple surgeries, and I lost wrestling for out of a 12-month span, I was off the mat competitively for 9 months and physically off the mat for 6 out of that 12-month span, and it was rough. And if those guys hadn't been there and poured into me, I maybe wouldn't have got my career going again, right? Just because you go down dark holes, rabbit holes when you're hurt like that. And because unfortunately, when you're 20 years old, you don't define yourself properly sometimes. And you define yourself too much as an athlete or too much as a competitor, not as a whole person. And I know I was guilty of that. And those guys really brought me along and believed in me and poured into me and continued to keep me connected. And so that was really big.
Because I think, what you're saying is true. It is a holistic approach. If you're asking these guys to run through a wall for you, and I've always said, hey, before I ask these guys to run through a wall for me, they got to know I'm going to run through a wall for them, and I'll do whatever it takes. Now, it's always not going to be pleasant. Some of it's discipline and leading them, but it's also they have to know your commitment and you care.
Sure, and the trust factor, right, in relationships, always two-way streets, and sometimes you just click with people, and sometimes it takes olive branches and bridge buildings and time, So, but they really continue to do that. And then I think Coach Zaleski out at Oregon State, he really cares about wrestling. He always talks about what's best for the sport, not just what's best for your program, what's best for your conference, what's best for the league. So he's got a really good 30,000-foot approach, I think, and I know wrestling's a better sport because he's in it. He's just a really good man. And I think the same thing with Troy. Troy's the best man at my wedding. So I probably I wouldn't be in coaching if it wasn't for two guys kind of saved my career at Oregon State. Troy Steiner and a guy that's in the community there, John Rich, who's a lawyer in town. Those two families really poured into me. My second year at Oregon State, I had a hard time. It was all the way on the West Coast. All my friends and family were on East Coast time. Rained a lot out there. I got down, and I couldn't get myself going and out of it. And, probably those two guys' wives more than anything just invited me over, opening their homes, their children, preparing meals for me, sending me home with goodie bags, checking in on me. So Troy and Sean Steiner and John and Minnie Rich, those guys are lifelong friends, and so that was great. And then Steve, at Virginia, his passion. He's so. I'm not sure anybody cares as much as he does. We always joke. This is his words, not mine. He calls himself, he's crazier than a poop house rat. That's what he always says about himself, and he is. I
was going to say, I would challenge anybody to match that guy's energy.
Yeah, it's wild.
I've never seen the guy.
There's no.
Do you have an off button?
No, he doesn't. And he would tell you at times it's probably his own worst enemy. But I think it's also his greatest gift, and sometimes that can be the same thing, right? But just kind of seeing how he is the Energizer Bunny, and that's what it takes, right? That's what it takes. And then at Missouri, Brian is the ultimate professional. He is if you could pick a guy in wrestling to go run a Fortune 500 company, he would probably be the guy you chose, him or Rob, right? Yeah, Rob Cole. And of course, where did Brian run? He was with Rob for 6 years at Cornell. So never misspeaks, never missteps. I always say Brian's playing chess when everybody else is playing checkers, and learning to be, calculating, not in a bad way, but just always thinking about, where do I need to get my program to? Where do we need to get a guy to? How can I get the most out of this, individual? How can I put my staff and my program, in the best light so that they can have the most success? No secret why he's had the success he's had. He's the consummate professional. He's amazing. So that dude could run a Fortune 500 company. He could be a state senator. He could do a lot of other things. He just likes coaching wrestling.
Yeah. So this is looping back around to close the loop. So all these guys have contributed, and I know I'm going to jump into two categories where people talk about it all the time, but very rarely do people actually describe it. That's philosophy and culture. How would you describe your philosophy or your approach to this role?
Yeah, it starts with communication, and it starts with a relationship. I have to clearly lay out my expectation, my standard for the program and for the guys and for myself and our staff. and it has to be clearly communicated, what that is, so that the guys can raise to the standard, they can raise to the expectation. I think kids today need structure more than ever. They lack it for whatever different reason in different areas, and so but they're hungry for it. Sometimes they don't know it, but they're hungry for it. I know I was the same way, and I could be rebellious at times when I was growing up, but I knew that where I was going to be 10 times every week, right? With working out every 7 days, I was going to get 10 workouts, and they were going to be at this time, and I knew that I was going to have to make sacrifices lifestyle-wise with my choices. Maybe not so much what I did, but what I didn't do, or where I didn't go. And then I was going to have to do it a whole bunch of times. And it was going to have to be not just a daily process or a weekly, but months and years. And that's hard, I think, sometimes for kids to see, because it's hard to invest. I think people by nature are afraid of failure, right? We all are. And so the more you invest, the harder it hurts when you don't succeed. And so really talking to kids about, if you're really focused on the outcome, you're going to struggle. But if you're focused on the journey and the process, and I know people talk about that all the time, and it gets really cliche, but maybe don't talk about that so much, but if you really just think about every day having fun, why do we wrestle? Well, why'd you wrestle when you were 10? It was fun. You hung out with all your buddies, you went to tournaments, you traded singlets, you traded cards and whatever, Pokemons and different things. Why can't it be the same? Why can't we come in and play games at practice and card games on the bus and watch movies as a team and go to the beach? And why can't we do all those things and still work really hard? Yeah, we're going to compete at a higher level, but part of that's fun too, right? Everything's being accelerated and accentuated, but the fun and the love of the process and the experiences shouldn't change. And so trying to make sure I bring that back into it, because I'm a really demanding person. I think everybody would tell you that I expect a lot, but I in turn give it. And at the same time, I thoroughly enjoy what I do. And so I don't feel like I ever go to work, ever. My wife's like, you never complain. You're gone 7 days a week. You worked 40 days in a row. You're 10 hours a day, 12 hours. She's like, I never hear you. And I'm like, I'm not working. I'm literally, I'm playing. Yeah. And so trying to connect those kids to that and have them get back to like, dude, you're in like the greatest time of your life. Like being a college kid, right? Like the buddies, the girls, the experiences, the travel. It's like no other time in your life will you be in a setting where you have like a 4 or 5 year age span where everybody's basically the same, and you're stuck in this little bubble, and you got to figure out who you are and where you want to be. So, I know it's a little long-winded and maybe not very concise.
No, but it's really, there's simplicity. It's like keeping it simple, the approach. Yeah. Like it's so easy to overcomplicate things, right? And overanalyze things. And
Lou Rosselli says this all the time. It's not wrestling. Or excuse me, it's not rocket science. It's just wrestling. Yeah, it's just wrestling.
Yeah. And the other thing is, like, you touched about fun. It's like at the end of the day, guys, it's still a game.
Yeah, it's a game.
It's a game. Now it's a game we want to win really, really bad, but it's still a game, right? And
trying to get the kids to have fun. So, I've got 4 words for the program that we've kind of developed over time, and I've been introduced to the guys, and it's faith, sacrifice, accountability, and perseverance. And so, we just talk about faith can be kind of interchanged with like belief, and then sacrifice. It's like, don't look at it as sacrifice, like what you're giving up. Look at it as trades. What are you getting? Yeah, by not going to that frat party on Friday night, or by not going to the club on Saturday night, you have the opportunity then to go do these things that other kids don't have. Like the general student can't go wrestle in the Big Ten championships, can't compete for a national title, doesn't have the opportunity to represent our country in a U23 games or a juniors or a senior level event. You're not making sacrifices, you're making trades. And then we talk about accountability. It's there's kind of 3 levels, right? Self, peer, and superior. And they, from there they go down in degree of effectiveness. Self accountability is the best. Peer accountability is next. And I should be the last line of defense. Our culture will only be as good as our locker room is, and so our guys have to step up and take ownership of that. And then perseverance, right, can kind of be looked at as consistency. You got to get up and you got to do it every day, and day in and day out. It has to become a lifestyle. It has to be who you are. And so those are the words that are kind of talked about a lot in our room with our guys. I've already shared them, probably more than they even want to hear. But we'll continue to develop it. I got my own tagline, Turtle Power. Rolled that out I actually knew that I was laying in bed either a couple nights before I interviewed or it was actually a couple nights before I interviewed. I threw it out there in the interview, and Mr. Evans was like, hey, I already got a social media tagline. He's like, all right, let's hear it. And I said it, and I'm like, if you don't hire me and somebody else runs with that, I'm suing you. And so he was giggling. I was like, no, I'm serious. That's mine. So, but that's, I think those words are good words if you're living in wrestling, or if you're living in banking, or you're living in, healthcare.
They're life words. I mean, you can't go wrong. You give those four principles to anybody, you're going to be successful.
And that's important for me.
Yeah,
we're developing these kids for later on, because I wouldn't be as good a husband as I am. And trust me, my wife's probably going to hear this. She's like, good husband, right? She's like giving me jabs, but as good a father, as good a leader. If people along the way didn't show me, pour into me. I mean, all the guys we talked about, Scott, Troy, Jim, Lou, Tim, Steve, Brian. I have really been fortunate to be around not just good wrestling people, really good people, really good human beings, and I know they've made me a better person. And I think about wanting to live up to that standard and not let those guys down. I've been given this tremendous opportunity. You think about the sport, like going back to a gym, what's best for not just our program, what's best for our league, what's best for wrestling. It's definitely those guys have impacted me and will continue to. I'm lucky to this day. They'll take my phone calls and answer my texts and mentor me. I love those guys. So,
and that's the thing. Like a lot of people think about just that 4 or 5 years that how they're performing in the program. But I've never met a coach at this level in this sport specifically. They all believe what I do with these guys in the next 4 or 5 years, I better prepare them for the next 50.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, it's true. This 4 or 5 years of your life are really setting you up to be successful. And so that decision you make as a recruit, right, as a student athlete, now 16, 17 years old, it's crazy how young we're recruiting these kids. I think that's one thing our sport is getting wrong, that we're moving backwards in recruiting. I don't think it's good.
Yeah, jump into that.
I don't think it's healthy.
Yeah.
I don't think it's healthy.
And fill people in, because most people maybe aren't quite familiar with the recruiting regulations.
You think about in 2001, right? That was the fall of my senior year. Half the blue chip kids were coming off the board in the fall, and then half of them were signing in the spring. And then you fast forward 10 years, and all the seniors were the rising seniors, right? Would be committed in the summertime, like pretty much 80% of them. And now we're looking at these kids that are rising juniors. Half of them, a third, are off the board. It's nuts. And so I think it's unhealthy for a couple of reasons. I think we're pushing these kids to wrestle more and more, and it's not good for their bodies or their minds. I don't think it's fair to families financially, and especially with us being such a blue collar sport. And then I worry about the time that we're taking from these kids. They're not getting to be kids. They're not getting to enjoy their being a sophomore in high school or junior in high school, going to prom, going to homecoming. You should have those experiences. Instead, we're asking kids to skip those and come on visits and go to showcase events. And so I'm a little worried about that. And then the last thing is just as a coach, we only get 9.9 scholarships, right? And so trying to divvy up those scholarships and put a roster together where you don't have holes and you don't have forfeits, well, it's hard because you recruit a kid, you're projecting, and all this kid's going to be a 25, and all of a sudden he's a 41. Or you're like, I think that kid's going to grow and be a 57, and he ends up being a 49. So I don't think with our sport, with the way the weight classes are, and needing to fit holes, right? Because I think in basketball, you can take maybe I'm wrong, maybe I don't understand the sport well enough. You can take a tall guard and make him a small forward. You can take a fast forward and make him a guard. In wrestling, it's like, no, you have to physically fit in this box.
Yeah, we're not a position sport. We're a weight class sport. And,
there's a reason there's weight classes.
Yeah.
There's a reason.
And you're already, it's already different. It was difficult enough recruiting juniors and seniors, projecting, okay, what's this kid going to look like as a 21, 22-year-old? Yeah. Where's he going to be? And, there's a science, there's an art to it, but also you start opening that up to 15-year-old kids.
Yeah, I don't like it. No. I don't like it. And I think as a sport, we're the only sport that doesn't have a defined recruiting calendar. It's an open window. We started to build some more dead periods into it. But other than that, we're legitimately, we can recruit 350 days a year. We're the only sport that's like that. Every other sport has off periods, periods of contact, periods of home visits. You think about football, basketball, baseball, soccer. I'm not saying we need to maybe constrict ourselves or confine ourselves as much as those other sports do, but I also don't think we're getting it right in terms of like what we're demanding of our coaches and the lifestyles. I want to be a good husband. I want to be an attentive father, but I feel a pull to be here, there, and everywhere.
Right. I mean, you talked about, these athletes don't have any down period. And I have other thoughts because, when you're competing all the time, like when's the actual development going on, right?
I would say right now, USA Wrestling is learning to compete at a really high level. But when I watch kids compete, I would say our basic skill sets, our general knowledge of the sport and what is sound and what is not sound, I think we're taking a step back there. And maybe some of the creativity and the better athletes and stuff, they can invent and have opportunities to be fluid and whatnot. But those kids would do that anyways. And if they had the better basic skills, or they had the better hand fighting, or they had the better leg finishes, or whatever it is, they would be able to create better there too. And you're seeing more injuries. You're seeing more injuries because of the early repetition, and you're seeing more injuries because of the over competition, the constant weight cutting, and then what you do to your body, not just training, but then competing. Like, think about, like, everybody listening to this, think about how friggin' sore you got after a competition, no matter how good a shape you were in. I mean, after the national tournament my senior year, like, I didn't want to get out of bed for like 3 days. Like, everything hurt, right? This is bruised, that's sore, that hurts, my neck. I mean, I had Roger Kish and Tyler Todd pulling on my head for 21 minutes of the tournament. Like, my neck was sore for like a week, So,
and a lot of people think they're like, oh, they're kids, they're resilient, they're that accumulates, man.
For sure it does.
We're a contact sport.
For sure it does.
And that, just like football is now, it's like stepping back and looking at how you tackle.
Well, and so soccer, all the restraints that they put in with like not letting certain age groups head the ball, not letting certain age groups learn to head the ball. I would say we probably should put some constraints into how many matches we let these kids wrestle, at different ages. And I'm not saying that it should be blanket across the board, because you should treat an 8-year-old kid different than a 12-year-old kid, different than a 16-year-old kid. But I think if we're going to really be healthy as a sport, we should probably think about limiting competition.
Yeah, I mean, we always have these advice for how you develop kids and how you do it, but we're kind of our own worst enemies. We've created a system where these kids have to compete because they're like, I'm losing money, right? Yeah, I'm losing money. If I'm not out here and I'm not winning and I'm not placing, I'm losing money. I'm losing scholarship. Or if I'm not going to high school nationals or flow nationals or whatever high-level competition is, like, I'm losing money. And these parents, it's just a vicious cycle.
It is. But I don't think it's one that we can, like, make some small tweaks to here and there and rein back in. I don't think we're, so far off the slope that it couldn't be dialed back. But I always say that once you open something up, once you go down a path, it is really hard to divert or revert it. And hopefully at some point, we're doing a lot of things right in wrestling. I don't want to make it sound like, wrestling's all bad and we don't know what we're doing. By any means, it's not that. I think we're getting a lot of things right. It's a great sport for. I think about that poster. Have you seen that poster? You're a little older than I am. That USA Wrestling.
Thanks for that. Just a little.
USA Wrestling put out, and it was Bruce, and it was I can't remember the guy. I think it's Joe Gonzalez. See the 105? Yep. Did I get that right?
Yeah. 114.5. Bobby Weaver. Bobby Weaver was 105.
Okay, maybe it's Bobby Weaver.
Yeah.
And so whoever it was the little guy, the small.
Now I really am dating
105,
myself.
right?
I'm.
Yeah. And then Bruce, and it said on the poster, it said anybody can wrestle. And so we get so many things right in terms of like inclusivity and what we do. And now with the women's wrestling, and we're getting a lot right. And so again, I run hot, right? I'm super passionate and I'm always thinking, so how can we even get better? How can we even do more? And so that's kind of where my brain goes when I see, Fargo's also, NHSCAs and Super 32 and all these events are great, but is it too much? That's kind of what my brain goes back to.
And the other thing is, like, because it's a vicious cycle for the athletes, but it's a vicious cycle for the coaches too. Because, like you said, there's built-in periods now, but essentially you're recruiting year-round.
But then those built-in periods, right? It goes back to we're at home with our athletes and we're training them, and we're going 5-6 days a week or 7 days a week, or we're bringing kids on campus, or and so one of the things that I had to sell my wife on actually. She loves Columbia, right? She's from Missouri. We're high school sweethearts. I think she liked the fact of my lifestyle being an assistant. She sees all the time Brian, is gone extra that I'm not going, because Denise is like, hey, are you alone? And Lindsay's like, no, Alex is home. Denise is like, all right, just mine again. So I think Lindsay's afraid of that for me, and hopefully I've got maybe I don't. I hope I didn't lie to my wife, right? That I think, I'm going to do a couple things a little differently and try to maximize time.
It's an easy thing to say, right? It's a hard thing to live, really, because you've got, and we don't have a whole lot of time to talk more, but like you've got a big rebuild in front of you.
Huge.
And so how are you going to balance? I mean, because uber competitive, want to win no matter what. You want to win at the highest level. You don't want to just be competitive. So how are you going to balance that?
A couple little things, So Brian Bolin is like the greatest tennis coach in USA tennis right now. He's a college coach. He was at Virginia, won tons of titles. USA Wrestling stole him to be their director. He did it for a couple of years. I think he hated it, not being around the kids and not being around the developing guys. I don't think he liked the true CEO. Like we talk about as a head coach, you're a CEO, but you're more like a regional vice president that's in charge of like a unit, right? Because you've got a sports supervisor and you've got an AD. I think at USA Wrestling, he was like Rich Bender. That was what his job. I don't think he enjoyed it. He's now at Baylor. One day we were going to meet and I was going to pick his brain on a couple things when I was at UVA, and I was like, all right, I'll come right by your office. And he was like, okay, cool, I'll see you at Shenandoah Joe's. And I was like, what? He's like, I don't have an office. And I was like, come again? He's like, yeah, I haven't had an office for like 10 years. I mean, I've got a BlackBerry, this is old, right? I've got a BlackBerry and a laptop. And I'm like,
really?
What? He's like, yeah, I either work from home or I go to Shenandoah Joe's or I'm on the tennis court. And I'm like, wow, that's really interesting. And so I started thinking about, I don't know if I can do that, right? Completely give up brick and mortar. Because I think you need a presence in an apartment and kids need to be accessible and stuff. But
especially now as you're trying to establish a footprint on the program,
when we have mornings off, if I know, right, I know what the schedule is, and so do the kids. So if we have a morning off, maybe I bring my tablet home that night, my Surface Pro and my iPhone, and that morning I get my kids ready for school. I drop them off, they come back, I have coffee with my wife, let traffic in the metro area die down, and I go in at 10. And so I poured into my wife. We took a walk. We did a devotional, whatever it is, because that night I might not be home till 7. So I still got to spend time. Or, hey, the lifts in the afternoon. One day a week on this lift, I'm going to go watch my son play baseball. I think that's completely healthy. I have a strength coach who's awesome, who I love. My other assistants, I should be able to go watch my kid play baseball, and my guys should be fine with me doing that because they know that I'm getting re-energized and reinvigorated. I'm investing in my own children just like I invest in them so many other times. And so,
I mean, that's going to be critical because, I know talk about off days, I would always have to remind the guys, hey, off days doesn't mean you're running 5 or 6 miles. Off days doesn't mean you're off. You're off. And that's the thing. Like a lot of times as coaches, we're the worst victims of do what I say, just don't do what I do, right?
I know. And so you got to remind yourself, that phone isn't going anywhere. That email isn't going anywhere. So that night when you can't sleep and you're not worried about your team, well, then get up and work. Answer the 20 emails that you got unopened, or watch the 3 recruiting tapes you didn't get to. I think there's different ways to do things, and so I'm going to experiment. I'm going to be like a mad scientist and try to find out what works for me. Everybody's different, right? Some people keep crazy office hours, and it's this is how they do it. And you've got Brian Bolin over here, who's never in the office, and people are successful on both ends. So I've got to find what works for me and what works for Maryland, and what works for my staff and my family, and we'll play with that. But I told the guys at Maryland first and foremost that the 3 most important people in the world are my wife and 2 children, and they will always come first, no matter what. So if you're hiring a guy, if you think you're going to be able to, if you want a guy that's pigeonholed into the Xfinity Center 90 hours a week, you're hiring the wrong guy. Yeah. I'll work like crazy. Nobody's, I think, as much as organized as I am. I think I've got a skill set that I can be successful at this. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll suck. I don't know, right? We'll find out.
That's the beauty of it, right?
But I'm going to do it my way.
Yeah. And that's when you finally get that first head coach job, it's okay, let's see if this stuff actually works. Everything that I've been thinking about for the last decade about this is how I would do it. This is it. Yeah,
it's fun. I tell you what, I am having a lot of fun with that, and being able to pick from different people, and even just talking about Brian Bolin right now, a tennis coach, and then at Maryland we've got Sasha, the men's soccer coach who's won 5 titles, and field hockey and lacrosse. And so I'm picking people's brains, and So it's cool. Just going to try to apply what other successful people have done and what my idea of success and how to get there and see if we can, hit a home run.
Well, I'm super excited for
Yeah,
it.
me too.
Gotta plug us. Shameless RUDIS plug. We're super excited. We've got a partnership going with you.
I'm pumped
Gonna
about
have
it.
you in the shoe. Gonna outfit the RTC. Gonna do your camps.
And our headgears. We're going to do headgears.
Headgear. So we're really appreciative of that.
Yeah, me
Really
too.
excited about you. I think everybody's been looking at Maryland for the longest time. Like this place. Now there was a glimpse of it. I think when Pat was there,
Yeah.
Santoro. There was a glimpse of it about what the potential finally being realized. So you know what can be
Yeah,
done.
for sure.
How are you gonna make that happen?
Well, I think the school and the resources and things kind of speak for themselves, and so we really need to go out and identify the right kids, the kids that
And for you, who is that right kid? Because a lot of times people think, well, it's just all about talent, and that's
it's not.
That's
It's
the
not.
start,
It's
right?
funny. I sent a text message to my staff today after a kid lost, and I said, I could read it to you. I said, I love that kid. We have to have him, all caps. And he got down, and he never stopped. It was like a fight and a battle and an uppercut and a double leg, and he chipped away at the lead. And the other kid, maybe just a little better that day, and he found a way to win and kind of chip back. But that kid, he didn't throw a hissy fit. He didn't mother up his coaches. He didn't mother up his dad. He grabbed his stuff, acted like a man, and went in the back. And who knows what he said back there, did back there.
Well, do it back there.
But he conducted himself like a man and competed like a man. And that's what I'm looking for, kids that are willing to do that. Because if you can compete like that, I know you prepared a certain way. And so I really want that. And, another RUDIS plug is, Ben, right? I need to find Maryland's Ben Askren, right? Brian went out and found a guy that could change the program, be a face of the program, win at a super high level, be charismatic, be unique. I'm looking for my Ben, right? I'm looking for, you could look at different programs of what kind of all had it, but I'm looking for that, right? Who wants to come out and be the face of a program? I've left the wall in the room blank. I'm like the first Big Ten champ, first national champ, first four-time All-American. Right? Those things haven't been done in our program. The national champ has happened several years ago, right? We haven't had a Big Ten champ, unfortunately. We haven't had a four-time All-American. We've had a couple threes, but not a four. And so, who's going to be the face of the program? Who wants to come be a legend? Do you want to be a name on a wall somewhere, or do you want me to build a damn wall to you? Because it's waiting for you. So, who wants to sink their teeth into that? And so, there being a unique kid. It's up for that challenge, a unique perspective and a unique confidence, probably, maybe a little arrogance to really believe like that. But somebody's out there, they'll want to do it. Somebody will fight on that, and I'll be there to help them.
Yeah, and all those elements are critical for any wrestler, but it's especially so now that you're in the Big Ten, right?
Yeah,
and
it's a different ballgame.
Yeah, everybody can wrestle. Everybody can wrestle in D1.
Sure.
Sure. The attitude and the attitude that you have to have in that conference, because it's every week.
Yeah, it's every week. Yeah, and I liken it to people. When I tell my friends back home, I'm like, think about SEC football and probably take it up another notch. That's Big Ten wrestling. They're like, no way. And I'm like, yeah. You look at the conference, like the top 10 teams in the conference were all in the top 25. Like, you don't have 10 SEC football teams in the top 25. You got 7 or 8. I was like, it's another tick up, and I'm excited for that too. I've never shied from a challenge, right? I'm the kid from Missouri that maybe was a little overlooked recruiting wise, and he chose to go to Edinburgh. I was the kid that was a one-time All-American that was overlooked for assistant positions, and Jim Zaleski took a chance on me. And then, I've applied for several head coaching jobs. This is one of the ones that I won that I won. And I'm not a sexy name. I'm not the world team guy, Olympic medalist, but I think I'm a good coach. I think I have a good handle on what it takes, and I want to show people that I get a little chip on my shoulder. I want to show people that I know what I'm doing and can do it myself. So I've got a little bit of an edge, but I think maybe that's what Maryland
Which
needs.
is good. Yeah, a lot of the characteristics that you're describing, like, you got to pass it on to your guys.
Yep.
All those things. You better have a chip on your shoulder.
Yep.
You better be confident.
Yep.
You better believe that you can go no matter what.
No doubt.
Right?
No
And
doubt.
you got to recruit those guys. And, like, setting the bar and recruiting, like, you have to recruit the best.
Yeah,
like, you can't just say, oh, I can't go out to that Penn State will get that kid, or Iowa will get, like, Forget that.
I'm gonna make them spend more if they go get them. Then.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hey, brother, I appreciate you jumping on.
Thanks for having me. I'm pumped about the shoe. When we kind of sat down as a department, with my equipment guy, we went through like our options. One of the things that really attracted me to RUDIS is it's a wrestling company. Other companies make great products and they do amazing things, but they do it in other facets. And maybe someday RUDIS will too. But the fact that we were wrestling first and that it's a bunch of wrestlers doing it, not runners, not CEOs, not suits, it's people that get the sport and the nuances. We just talked about how important that was for me, having that at Maryland with my administration. I think RUDIS exemplifies that times 1,000, right? And so just the conversations we've had back and forth, instead of like, and it's not some like long drawn out, process of litigation where you're like, oh, this contract and I have to be really careful. We just pick up the phone and talk to each other. And so being able to have that and have somebody that's understanding, just you guys believe in what my staff and I are going to be able to do and that you want us to represent your product, that we love them. So I can't wait for these new models to come out and get our hands on them, put our guys in them, put myself in them. Maybe I'll get my bat butt going again in them. So we're pumped though. I think it's a great step for our program. We're fortunate to partner with you. We're happy to fly the flag, that's for sure.
Well, again, thanks for coming on. You're a guy that I've known for a long time. You're a guy that I knew it wasn't a matter of if but when. And so I'm glad the win finally came. I'm glad the win is Maryland and what the future is going to be, and it's going to be exciting. We've got to keep stopping in periodically because I want to check in on the process and see how that's going. And I want to talk about those things you're checking off the box.
Sure. Love to have you. Love to have you guys come out to College Park. See the guys train in the shoe. See the guys compete in the shoe because we're and the difference as we get better recruits in, we train them at least the current guys at a higher level. Just to watch that process is going to be fun. I know it's going to be a long one. It's going to be, I'm sure, frustrating at times, but at the end of the day, I think it's going to be very rewarding and enjoyable. So good.
All right. Thank you very much.
I appreciate it.
Take care. All right. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.